Hi, I'm Ken Gammill from Gammill Quilting Machine Company. Since my last promotional video, we have introduced many new important features to our quilting machine, and today I would like the opportunity to show you those. But first I'd like to review some of the features that we've had for quite a number of years. One thing that stands out with the Gammill machine is our specially designed wheel track system that's stain-free, which is a very important feature. Secondly, we have had for several years a one-step pickup roller elevation system. Now, this elevation system raises both ends of the pickup roller at the same time, therefore keeping it level. This eliminates you having to make a trip to each end to make that adjustment. The alternative to that is having a roller that's permanently fixed in a certain position, and then you have to have a second roller to hold the fabric on a level. So the adjustable pickup roller has some advantages over a fixed pickup roller. One is that it can allow you to see your work when you're working from the pantograph side, which is not necessarily true with the fixed pickup roller. Another exclusive feature with the Gammill quilting machine is the 2.5-inch fabric handling rollers. 2.5 inches is 40% stronger than the 2-inch rollers. And of course the strength means that you don't have bending and bowing when you put a little tension on your fabric. One other thing I'd like to point out is the fact that our stand is adjustable in height. For regardless of what height you are, we can make it fit you comfortably. And you may notice too that we have casters on the legs. This is an optional feature, but they are available in case you have a large room and want to use it for multiple purposes. Then you can move the machine to another location while you're teaching or whatever. Okay, one other new thing about our system is the pivotal access feature. Now, several things are important about having a pivotal access. One is that you can access your batting at any time to add trapunto batting or to check it to see if there's a dark thread that's attached to your batting that you must take off before it gets in your quilt. And of course then there's always just straightening up the batting. And the way we do that is we release our roller, we pull a pin, and then we can pivot these two rollers, which allow us perfect access to the batting. And of course, when you get through with that, well, then you'd put your pin back in and put the tautness back on your fabric. Of course, as you can see, we have edge stabilizers that hold the edges, both edges of the quilt still while you're working near the edge of your quilt. We also have heavy-duty canvas leaders. We actually go to the trouble to put a little hem on it because it makes the leaders hold their straight edge much longer and actually last much longer. Some of the other things that are unique about the Gammill machine is you can store your batting under. If you happen to want to use the commercial roll of batting, the large roll, then there's a pipe under there that you can support your large commercial roll of batting under the stand where it's out of the way, and it actually flows from the storage right into the quilt without you having to handle it. Now, this, the features of the stand that are unique, well, there is one other too. We have a large pattern shield that covers the full top of the table. That's handy in the event you're using an extremely wide pattern. I'm talking about pantograph patterns now. And if you should want to create a corner for your border, you have enough pattern shield to allow you to turn a curve, in other words, around the corner. Now, I would like to introduce you to one of my favorite people. Her name is Linda Taylor, and she has operated a Gammill quilting machine for quite a number of years. And Linda, if you would come on in, I'll give you a demonstration on some of the very newest features that we have in our latest version of our Classic and Optimum and Supreme machine. The newest feature that I'm speaking of is called regulated stitch. We actually call this series of quilting machine the Gammill Plus quilting machine. We have a Classic Plus, we have an Optimum Plus, and we have a Supreme Plus. But the Plus means that it's our regular machine, but it has the regulated stitch plus a lot of other things. And some of those other things is the two-station needle positioner, and with the same switch, we can switch it to one stitch or slow stitch, if you want to call it that. And of course, in two stations means that we can press the button and it will go down. Okay, I have failed to turn the power on to the machine, so I must go around to the other side and turn the power on. This, by the way, is your master power switch right here.
So now, in addition to the channel lock that we had before, which we used for basting quilts and for backgrounds, we also have a vertical channel lock?
Yes, we have two-directional locking system.
That's great.
And it's identified on the control panel by H for horizontal and V for vertical. And of course, I'll demonstrate that a little bit later. First, though, I want to show you the two-station needle positioner. When we have the toggle switch turned down, that's in the two-station mode. And that means we can make our needle go down or back up with each press. We also have a single stitch feature too, which people use for securing the beginning of their seam. In that event, you just press and hold the button, the button in the left handle.
That's very handy, so you don't have to hit it twice to do one stitch.
Right, if you choose to do that. Even in needle position mode, you can hit it twice and make your needle go down and back up, of course. But one other thing that people use the one stitch feature for is basting. And where you would use that would be along the edge of your quilt here, because since your backing material is usually larger than your top, you can baste the three things together, which would be the top, the batting, and the backing. Baste all three of those together, then you can hook your edge stabilizers on just the backing and allow yourself to sew out to the edge of your quilt.
Yes, and with some patterns, that's very important. So.
Right, and of course you need a stitch that will pull out easily and immediately. And of course the one stitch feature is used for drawing the bobbin thread to the top of the fabric, so you can cut both top and bottom at the same time. I do believe I dropped the scissor. Okay.
There we go.
So anyway, you don't have to string thread across if you move your machine from one point to another, if you draw the bobbin thread up and clip both top and bottom at the same time.
And no tails to clip underneath.
That's right, because at the same time you're cleaning up underneath it at the same time. Okay, well, also in this regulated stitch system, incidentally, it's not always in regulated stitch if you don't want it to be. In the control panel, we have 6 buttons here. One of them says M, that means motor speed control. So if I touch M, the display will tell me I'm in motor speed control. It'll also tell me what percentage of the speed that I've got it set on. 2 of these other buttons, one of them is plus, and that's the way you would change the speed, the percentage of your speed.
Increase it with the plus and decrease it with the minus?
Exactly.
I see.
So if I want to go slowly, I would touch the minus and get down to a low speed range. I'll pick up my bobbin thread there. I'll secure the end of the seam, and I believe I'll set my needle in, which means I need to go to the down needle position. And this holds everything in place while you do something else, like put your gam guide on, or whatever you need to do with your hands. It holds your machine in place. And so now I can sew at a very slow speed. I am in manual or motor speed mode, and I'm doing a little stippling or meandering. Stippling, okay. And as you can see, when I turned the machine off, the needle went to the position that I had it set to, which was down. Okay, now I want to get the needle out, and I will go back to single stitch because I think I will go ahead and draw the bobbin thread to the top and cut top and bottom at the same time. You mentioned a while ago that we had two-directional locking system. Well, that's exactly right, and that's really quite important. Again, I'll draw the bobbin thread to the top and do the tie stitch, and I think I will also set the needle in the fabric again to hold it there. All right, now if I want to go horizontally, I lock out vertical. In other words, there's an H for horizontal and a V for vertical. So you heard the machine lock it set to the carriage.
Yes, I did. I could hear that magnet attaching.
Well, I cannot go vertically now, but I can go horizontally. And I think I should change the speed to a faster speed because going straight is real easy to go fast. And so with a very light touch on the machine, I can go horizontally. And the needle positioned itself. Now I want to go vertically, and so I'll lock out horizontally. As you can see,
that's wonderful.
This is a good way for you to make perfectly parallel lines or perfect squares because you have two horizontals and two verticals that are perfectly parallel.
It may not necessarily be right in the ditch because your quilt isn't straight, but the machine is straight.
That's true. Stitching in the ditch requires hand-guided, of course. But this does definitely have an advantage because you can make perfectly square or perfectly rectangular patterns.
That's wonderful.
Okay, as you can see, I just accidentally went around a circle there, didn't I? Okay. Now, you're the pro on operating the machine, so I won't try to compete with you there. But I do want to show you the regulated stitch. Now, if we want to go into automatically regulated stitch, I press the button that said A. That means automatic regulated.
Okay. Now, regulated means it's going to give you
so many stitches per inch, and you have a choice, really. You can choose 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12 stitches per inch. And when you move the machine, after you have activated it, when you move the machine automatically keeps you at the same size stitch at all times.
Oh, I see. That's what we try to achieve. Yes.
Exactly. And so the machine is not activated until I press the red button here, which is some people say the on button.
Okay.
Anyway, when I press it, you'll notice a little green light come on with the word enabled above it. And when it comes on, then as I move the machine motor speeds up and slows down to keep me at a consistent stitch size. And I can, of course, do any stitch. You know, I can do meandering, stippling, stitching in the ditch. I can do channel quilting, or whatever type stitch I want. I just move the machine. I don't have to concentrate on anything but guiding the machine.
So when the green light comes on, then you just have to move the machine, and it will go at the rate that you've set it.
It'll keep you at the constant stitch size.
That's incredible.
Very handy.
Yes.
Especially if you're not used to operating a machine like a person that's just beginning to quilt. Well, they're always concerned about, well, how am I going to keep my stitches even? Because normally two things control your stitch size, and that would be the speed you move the machine plus the speed you have your needle working.
That's correct.
So in this case, the needle speed is controlled by the speed you move the machine, so it stays consistent, of course. Okay, any questions?
Well, I can see that would really especially take the learning curve out a lot of this, you know?
Yes, it does.
Because then you don't have to worry if you're first, you know, because most of us are in business that buy these machines. So, you know, right off the bat, we can start making money. But I'm wondering for people like me, if I use that stitch regulator, would the differences in the motor help train me even to be better?
I believe it would. Actually, I guess there's two schools of thought there, you know.
As I practice with it, you know, I'm thinking even just practicing with it would maybe help me move at a more consistent speed.
That's true. Of course, when you don't have regulated stitch, that's the goal, is to move the machine as smoothly and consistently as you can in order to achieve that constant stitch size. but it does take away the worry of making a constant stitch size and allow you to concentrate on your artistic skills.
Yes.
And incidentally, how long have you been operating a Gammill quilter?
I got my first machine in '93.
So
About 8 years, almost 8 years.
I see. Well, I can tell you you've really accomplished a lot in 8 years.
Well, thank you.
I'm pleased to have you as one of my customers.
It's the most thrilling thing I've ever done.
Okay, what else can I show you that's new? Maybe nothing that's new to you, but
yeah, the one thing that I'm very impressed by, of course, is the double spool holder, because I like to do things with a lot of different threads. I don't know if you've pointed that out already, or
I haven't, but that's a good point. Sometimes you don't need to buy 3,000 or 6,000 yards of a certain thread, and so you can buy 200 yards of it in a little spool that you'd use on your home machine. And consequently, now, since we have the small spool holder, you can use those spools on our machine. Incidentally, they won't fit the same place that the cone fits, as you know.
No, they won't.
So you have to have a special accommodation for the small spool holder. We're not using the small spool holder now, but it's just a matter of threading it up.
I have also used more than one thread at a time for my decorative type work and vests and things like this. So I find that that's a very handy thing.
It's convenient to have two of them up there if you're going to be switching threads back and forth.
And then the GAM guide, I don't know if you've shown them the GAM guide yet.
One other thing I'd like to point out about the two threads, I know of some people that actually thread their needle with two threads, and they say it gives them a chain stitch effect. It sort of looks like a chain stitch, even though it's not a chain stitch and it will not ravel. But, okay, you mentioned the GAM guide.
Yes.
Where's the GAM guide? Here it is. Here's one right here. We'll do the long one first, and then we'll show you the short one. And I believe, I'm still in regulated stitch mode, so I believe I'll sew over to this point right here where I want to start sewing. And the GAM guide, as you know, the long GAM guide bar must be placed on the back side of the foot. So if you're going this direction, you put it on the left back side, because we depend on the foot riding the edge of it here to stabilize it against the pickup roller. That way we don't have to worry about it slipping or anything. So we do also elevate the front part, or this end of the GAM guide, and the roller elevates, or stabilizes, I should say, the other end. And so you simply turn it on and move it at whatever speed that you desire. You're going to get the consistent
And with the regulated stitch, you've taken the guesswork out of that.
That's right. And you can, as I mentioned, you always keep it on the back side of the foot. So if you want to change directions with your angled pattern,
which you do have to do when you're cross hatching.
Exactly. Then you would change sides of it, and as you notice, the needle stopped in the fabric, which is my preference, because you want to be able to turn it loose and not let it roll someplace else. Okay, so I believe this would be a good opportunity for me to show you the horizontal channel lock again, because I have made two legs of a triangle. So I'll do the third leg here. So this completes the triangular pattern. And have you noticed how many quilt patterns are made of triangles?
Oh, yes.
Many, many of them.
Indeed.
Okay, and of course the locking device can be used for vertical, but for those people that have our machine that don't have the two-directional locking device, then they can actually use the GAM guide to do the vertical.
I find that a very handy thing to do long lines.
Yes, it is. Of course, now, since I made the last promotional video, we came up with a couple of other new features to help in guide bars too. One is this little extended throat plate here. As you can probably see, there's the impression of a little plate underneath there.
A rectangle.
That's very important if you're using a short guide bar. And if you don't mind handing me the short guide bar, GAM Guide Junior, as we call Okay, this one, with the addition of the flat surface under there, allows you to do a perfectly straight diagonal short line. And of course, if you're stitching in the ditch on most of these triangular patterns, then you won't be making a real long one because the triangular patterns may not be over 3 or 4 or 5 inches, you know. So you won't need the long guide bar for that. You'll just want to use the short one. And of course, also, the short one can do the verticals. Now, what makes this possible, though, is our specially designed foot. Now, in the case of the short guide bar, we can put it on any side, and it won't be apt to get, you know, get under the foot.
Yes.
On the older feet that we used to use, we did have to worry about not putting it on the front side.
Yes, I worried about that.
Yes.
So I'm
You
glad
probably
you
had
have
that
this new
happen.
foot. Yes, I have.
Okay, so anytime that you want to use the short guide bar, you're able to put it on any part of the foot, but with the long guide bar, you still must put it on the back side because we depend on the bat wing device hooking on there to stabilize one end of it, you know. Okay, so this is a real handy tool, and of course this all comes with the machine, along with the extended throat plate and the small spool holder. Now, we haven't talked about the style laser, and incidentally, I have you to thank for introducing me to the style laser.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Everything I can do to make it easier for me. And
Well, yes, and we do listen to our customers, as you know. So I believe I'll raise the needle up now and bring the bobbin thread to the top, cut both top and bottom threads. And I know you're so good at doing freestyle, I want you to demonstrate. I'm going to go to the manual speed mode again.
Okay.
Because we haven't shown that. You haven't tried it with that. And so we will, how's 61%? Is that about
Probably not fast enough for me.
Not fast enough? Okay.
Maybe 70.
70?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all we have to do is touch plus or minus to change the needle speed.
Okay. Well, you know, I'll just do, feathers are my favorite thing of all.
Okay.
So I'm going to pretend this is a, you know, a border design here. And so I would start here, and you can do those border designs as you're actually rolling and doing the quilt. So I would just kind of curve around the border like this. And see, I have to concentrate on moving this at an even speed because
It's not in the regulated mode.
that's right.
True.
And then as I do these feathers, I think of, when you're first doing feathers, you think of half hearts as you are beginning.
I see.
I don't know if you remember when I was in grade school, I can remember doing on a half a sheet of paper, you know, tracing a half of a heart and then opening it up, cutting it, and then there was a heart. I was always amazed. So this is kind of what we're
Going back to
doing
your
here.
childhood,
That's right. We're kind of going back to our childhood. But then it is also important for you to follow that stem as you're coming back because that sets you up for the next feather that you're coming around. And
Well,
you
I
can
wish I had the artistic skills you do.
You can get really fancy if I come out here with a little, you know, a little curl or something like that. And then I would, of course, continue that all the way around. And then I would come back. I like to double my stems on my feathers because I think they're prettier. And I'm moving very evenly as I can without that stitch regulator on. But I'm excited to try that and see how that works.
And then you'll feather the other side.
Then I will feather the other side. So you can see how quickly you can do a border design.
Right.
And then you could echo or stipple, but it stands alone too. You know, it's there, and that's all you may need to do on the entire thing. So
I mentioned the style laser a while ago, but then we sort of got off of that. But in the event you didn't have the skills that you do, you could still do this beautiful work with, with a printed paper.
Oh, yes. There's, from behind the machine, you could lay your pattern back there, and in fact, I even have this pattern. This is a curly feather pattern, and you could do that following that style laser.
I see you do it with one hand quite frequently.
I do that.
Okay. Well, that's great, Linda. That's a beautiful pattern, and it's so fast.
Well, it's very fast.
I can imagine how long that would take to do it by hand.
Oh, my goodness. So,
I usually tell my customers this is a long arm quilting machine quilts about 50 times faster than a by hand stitching. You know.
for that reason, you don't want to make mistakes because you have to pick more.
That's exactly right. Okay. Well, I'll raise the needle up again. We will draw the bobbin thread to the top and cut our 2 threads. And I guess it's time for you to demonstrate the style laser to me.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
You like to use it on the right side or the left side?
I have used it on both sides, and I teach my students that they shouldn't have a favorite because you end up using it on both sides.
Because you need to use it on both
That's
sides.
right.
Well, since it was on the right side, I'm going to move it to the left side to show our viewers that you can operate it from either side.
Okay.
Now, of course, you'll show them how to synchronize their pattern.
We will. Shall we roll
Shall
up
we
just a
advance the
smidgen
fabric?
here?
I believe we should.
And you can do that very quickly, too.
Okay, I'll let you do that. You just release
it.
the roller,
Yes, I released the
And
roller and rolled
advance it,
that one, and then
put
I
your
put my...
tension back on, and you're back in business.
So
Now,
these can roll back and forth very fast.
so we hook the edge stabilizers up, which the name tells you exactly what they do. They stabilize the
Now,
edge.
some people think that those really are for, I'm going to move this just a little bit closer to me.
Okay.
That these are like to pull the lining really tight, and they do keep the wrinkles out, and I always check underneath the quilt when I roll, but they really do, you don't want to have them real tight because that can distort your quilt.
Exactly.
So
Yes,
you have to
can
be
certainly
careful
stretch
there.
your fabric with these stretcher.
Yeah, so
Stretcher clamps is what some people
stretcher
call them, but
clamps.
they're not stretcher
No,
clamps.
they're not. If I wanted to place my design right here in the center, I would find the center. I don't have a square here to find, but I would find the center. And then I can adjust the light out here, or I can adjust the pattern. And we have, this is a stencil kit. This completely stabilizes this so that it doesn't
Gives it a
vibrate or
base to
anything.
work on.
Gives us a base. And then I have a piece of acrylic here. The pattern is taped on the back, so it's kind of like a computer mouse, sort of. I don't have any tape or pins or anything like that. So I'd find my center, and I can even check with the marks that are on the actual acrylic if I were coming out to the end of the square to see if I'm
Exactly.
lined up exactly where I need to be.
I see what you mean, yes.
So it really does, it really is nifty. And I'm still in the manual mode here.
Well, we want people to understand that they can use either mode that they want.
That's kind of fun.
Up until recently, we only had manual mode.
Yeah,
you know.
why don't I put it on the
Okay,
regulated
sure.
stitch? Let me try that.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so now I push this button and the green light, wait for the green light, and then I just move it.
Exactly.
So I'm following my light around. Ooh, this is fun. You know, people think that they have to trace these patterns exactly, too, and I think that it's more important that your quilting is smooth. And
If you don't-
I don't worry about going out of lines as much as I worry about a nice, smooth movement to my... And I can hear that I'm slowing down and speeding up in different areas. And
I used to think that I moved the machine quite consistently until I got the regulated stitch. I found
Yeah.
out by looking at the stitches
By hearing
closely
that
and
motor.
hearing the motor that I was not.
yeah, I think that this really could, if you work with it, I think it could really help you become a better quilter. And then I'm going to
sure
come
it
back, I can look right down here. That's great.
Beautiful. I agree. You mentioned that you
Wow.
didn't have to stay perfectly on the line. I usually tell my customers that the important thing is that they don't make a quick correction. You know,
Oh,
if
yes.
they catch themselves off the line, they sort of slowly move themselves back to the line.
Like driving off the road and, you know, when you flip your car right over.
That's true.
This is neat. I love it.
It's really great for stippling because that's one of
Ooh.
the difficult things to keep your machine movement exactly the same all the time. You cannot do it, in fact, but having the regulated stitch on there still makes your stitches the same size. How do you like the new foot?
I love the new foot. Let's move my thread out of the way. That's fantastic. Well, I could have a lot of fun with this. I can
Okay.
see that. That's a lot of fun.
Linda, I just thought of something. We haven't shown them or told them about our built-on bobbin winder
Oh, yes.
and our double capacity bobbin. It's very important that you have a lot of bobbin thread, because who likes to change bobbins? You know?
I cannot imagine having a single size bobbin, because I sometimes will go through 30 bobbins on a quilt. I do heavy quilting, and
Well, this cuts it in half, you know, the double capacity does. And the convenient thing of having the built-on winder means that if you run out of thread, you take the full one that's up there, place it here, put the empty one up there, and then when you need another bobbin, it's sitting there already filled for you. And so you just simply exchange bobbins.
as long as you have those 2 cones of thread, that works so good. Otherwise, you can wind them. You can stand and wind just like you would on a normal bobbin winder.
That's true. You can take your machine off the fabric.
Can't be threaded.
And
Right.
Exactly. And you know, we talked about the vertical and horizontal locking system. This is where that would really be handy, because you can lock the machine where it can't go that way and can't go this direction.
Oh, it has to be in this.
Exactly.
You know, I've done everything but lasso my machine with the clamps to try to hold it still.
They move so easily that if your floor is a little bit unlevel, or if your machine is a little unlevel, when you turn it loose, it wants to roll to the low point. So this will hold the machine in position while you wind a bobbin, or while you install your fabric. You can push it down to the end and park your machine out of the way while you install your fabric, and it won't be rolling down in the way.
And I do little tests, you know, for my tension before I start. So if I lock it like that, that will make that a lot easier.
Very good point.
Great.
You know, I should talk a little bit more about the things we've had on our machine for quite a long time, you know, like the centralized lubrication system. If you can, and you know this because you've had a machine for a long time, but the little brass cup up there lubricates 6 different locations in the machine. Now, there are other locations to lubricate, but that's what we call the centralized lubrication point. And then we mentioned the big bobbin and the built-on winder. The two, what's new is the fact that we have a data display unit on both ends of the machine. So when you're working from the other end, you have this same control panel right here to control your machine with, or set your machine with. And in the sewing mechanism, and of course you know this, but the viewers don't maybe, we have a thing called automatic thread escapement control, which opens the door for the thread when it goes through the escapement, which is normally a stress point on the thread. Well, in this case, when the thread passes through that escapement, there's no stress because the door is open for it. And another exclusive thing about the Gammill machine is the hopping foot, or the stroking foot, if you want to call it that, is adjustable.
That is something that I have used so much. I am so grateful for that.
Because when you're sewing on something real thin, like this cotton batting, and you change to something extremely thick, like you're doing a comforter,
or trapunto. I run into that on trapunto, and I have to raise that foot.
That's right. And this little button on top, it's not really just raising the bar, it's changing the amount of stroking action, because with thin things you don't need a large hopping action, so to speak. But on a comforter or a trapunto, you would want the foot to step higher. So with this little button, you can adjust it to where it will stroke at any position, from 0 stroke all the way up to about, I think it's about 1/4 of an inch variation. So that's another exclusive feature with the Gammill machine. Another is, you may have noticed we have an extra tension on our machine here. This one is the conventional tension, not necessarily conventional, because now we use a rotary wheel tension. I'll explain the advantage in that in a moment. But the auxiliary intermittent tension is very important to eliminate loops on the bottom side of your fabric, because at the time the take-up lever is going from the top to the bottom, and incidentally it's coming up between the thread that comes off the cone and the thread that came out of the sewing mechanism. So we want to make sure it pulls all the thread out of the sewing mechanism. We do that by using an intermittent tension that adds a little additional tension to the cone side at the time the take-up lever is pulling it out of the sewing mechanism. So in a nutshell, it sort of guarantees no loops on the bottom side. And so the auxiliary intermittent tension, the variable stroke hopping foot, the automatic thread escapement control are only found in a Gammill machine.
In the Gammill machine.
And really only in the top 3 sizes of the Gammill machine.
You were going to tell us about
The rotary wheel tension. All right. In this particular case, you know, normally tension is put on the thread by squeezing it between 2 discs. And the coarser the thread, the more drag is put on it, of course. So if you switch from fine thread to coarse thread, well, you're going to have to readjust your tension because the drag has increased. In the case of the rotor wheel tension, it puts the tension on the thread indirectly. We require the thread, and all threads are going to roll the wheel. We require the thread to roll the wheel. And fineness or coarseness has nothing to do with it. So we put tension on the wheel that the thread is rolling, which indirectly puts tension on the thread. And so consequently, when you switch from coarse to fine or vice versa, well, you don't have to make any adjustment on you. Now, keep in mind, though, if you switch from fine to coarse and you're using a small needle, you may have to change needles to accommodate the heavier thread.
What I have found with the rotary tension is that my metallics and my rayons, the fine threads, aren't already fried and squished, you know, before they get down there. And so it has really helped with the thread breakage tremendously with those delicate threads.
Yes. Well, also, as you know, we have started using less tension on the bobbin. This allows us to use less tension on the top, and consequently, it's easier to balance your threads with less tension on it. So this is one of the things that we train our people, and I'm sure you train your people. Incidentally, Linda is one of the foremost teachers of long-arm machine hand-guided quilters in the world.
Thank you.
And she can offer you a class in her new facility that she has in McKinney, Texas.
And I would be happy
It's not
to do that.
McKinney anymore.
It's Melissa, but
Melissa,
it's
okay.
close to McKinney. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're naturally glad to have you as one of our customers and one of our teachers.
Thank you.
Can you think of anything else that we have failed to talk about that might be important to our viewers?
You showed the light already?
Well, we showed the laser on this side, but we haven't shown it on the other side.
You showed that?
Oh, no, I haven't. You know, we do have a fluorescent light over the stitching area, which eliminates you having to have a light above here. Now, if you use a fluorescent light, it's best to have it directly over the pattern, because if it's over here and you're working from the other side, you're liable to see a reflection of this light when you look into the pattern shield. So if you place it directly over the pattern, well, you won't see that reflection.
Yes. And this can be changed to a black light as well. And I use that often when I'm doing white on white things, so it illuminates the thread to a different color, so you can see what you're doing. So that is a really nice feature.
Right. So whether you're doing the black light work or the stencil work, you have a way to do it either way you prefer. Okay, maybe we should show the people the other side of the machine next, and first we'll show them how to move their style laser from one point to another. Well, obviously I'll have to walk to the other side, and I believe at the same time I'll remove this. Now, will we need to advance the fabric again, you think?
You're going to do a pantograph?
Yeah, to do the pantograph, it depends on where you want to stitch on that fabric.
Well, we can probably continue your pantograph right here.
Okay.
Take off the channel locks, and we'll go down and get our thread up.
While Linda's doing that, I will be changing the style laser to the other location. The receptacle for the style laser is in a position that allows it to reach this location or that location just by simply pivoting this. And this is my method of bringing the power to the laser light. Okay, I'm going to have to change the routing of the wiring. Now this pin that I'm using down here actually has two purposes. We use it for the laser light, when we use it down here, and we also use it for the circle making guide, which we'll demonstrate a little later. Now you're wanting to work from this side?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'll let you tell the people how you synchronize your style laser.
How we synchronize the style laser. I would probably need to advance that back a little bit because the quilt's up a ways. Okay, from the back of the machine, we're going to be doing our pantograph pattern. And I started one earlier here on this piece, and so all I have to do is adjust my laser light to where I left off, and then I can just, I'm going to go on manual here and just begin following the laser light on the back of the machine. And you can see how, you know, the machine, the way the machine moves so easily, I just use my fingertips to move this machine. If I had, as much as I sew, if I had to work really hard at this or lift the machine, or I would have knots in my back. I just wouldn't be able to do this. So.
Incidentally, Linda, we're winding a new bobbin now.
That's good because, you know, we're doing a lot of sewing here.
Right.
So we're going to need one. So.
That's a beautiful pattern.
Thank you.
This is one of your own design, isn't it?
This is one of my own designs.
Okay, the bobbin winder fill and cut itself off automatically.
Yeah, the bobbin winder fills way faster than you need it.
Right.
So you can see how quickly you can do a pantograph and how easily. It's just this, it's just gliding motion, you know, using the body and learning to walk. A lot of students say they have to kind of learn to walk over again, but it sure is a lot of fun.
To move their body without affecting the machine, they need to sort of relax their arms as they take a step in a way.
A lot of fun.
Well, that's beautiful. Okay, I think that illustrates the pantograph quilting from this side. Incidentally, we call this pantograph quilting because this is the first thing that we did, and it is a pantograph system. But when we started moving the style laser to the other side, we started calling it stencil quilting. So you can call both of them pantograph or both of them stencil if you want to.
That's great.
I think the next thing we should do is you show the circle making device,
okay,
which we call Circle Ease Fantastic, and we'll need to remove the style laser. Now, of course, I could set it back up on top, but to conserve time, I'll just remove it completely. And you want to pick out a place to center a circle?
Yes,
here?
I think I'll walk around the table and roll that quilt so you can put a circle somewhere.
Okay. You're going to roll the quilt, you said?
Take our clamps off there.
Okay.
Oh, you want to bring the needle up?
Surely.
There we go.
As a matter of fact, I'll take care of the thread, too. Okay. Well, you know, we could put a circle around this.
I think that's a good idea. Put a
Is that what you
circle
call
around this
a
design.
motif? Motif? Okay. Now you can see where center is better than I.
Right there.
Okay. We'll set the needle in the fabric just to hold it in that position. And of course, the synchronization of the circle making device is done like this. First of all, you would turn the device, the guide pin vertically, and then you would align the pin with the slot that's in the pattern, that's in the circle maker. And we will need to shift the fabric a little bit more. There we go.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's plenty.
Sometimes you do have to move the quilt slightly.
Exactly. There is a range of adjustment here, but you have to stay within that range. Okay, the purpose now is to get the guide pin pointing to the pivoting point of the circle maker. And so I have it aligned. I will now determine how large your circle. Of course, I can get the needle out of the fabric now. And I will determine how large your circle I want. I know I have to stay outside that pattern that I'm going to circle around. So what I will do is loosen the little sliding device on there, drop the pin in, I have my needle where I want the outside of the circle, so now I can tighten the sliding device and actually make a trial run, you know, just to be sure that we're correct. You want to do this?
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I will pick up the bobbin thread. I may not be putting the size circle around here you would, but we can go up to 16 inches in diameter. Incidentally, we have the needle position button on this end as well as the data display. And we have the one stitch on this end as well as the other end too. Okay, now I'm going to be operating from this end. I'll be in motor speed. I'll select about 70% of the speed. And I won't have to do anything toward guiding the machine. The circle maker will do that, but I will push the machine. So I heard you tell someone one time that you did want to pass the starting point to secure
Just
it.
a little bit, yes.
So
Instead
that's
of doing
the-
a back tack, then you don't have a lot of threads there.
Right.
And
Well-
I have found, you know, on the circles, that if that regulated stitch would be wonderful on that, because people tend to go a little fast, you know, and
That's-
we get big stitches on
That's
that.
exactly right. Well, I'll show them another interesting thing about the circle making device. It's infinitely adjustable. It's not that it's going to make a circle every half an inch. Because this little device here slides, you can make infinite sizes. So if you wanted to make another circle 1/8 of an inch in from the last one or outside the other one, well, I'm more like 1/4 of an inch, I believe. But again, I don't have to worry about making the circle perfect because I'm not really guiding it. So the circle maker is infinitely adjustable from 2 inches to 16 inches in diameter. And now we have another feature about the circle making device. It has a means of swinging to the left and to the right to make cluster circles. If you might think of the Olympic symbol, you know, it has 3 circles and then it has 2 on the bottom. Well, the fact that we can swing this to the left or to the right without moving the board makes those circles perfect, you know, perfectly aligned. And we would shift our fabric a little bit to make the 2 on the other side without moving the board again.
Wonderful.
And the other thing about the circle maker is that it also makes fans. And, you know, a fan is more or less, what, 1/4 of a circle? Okay, still one other thing you can do with it is make rainbow patterns. A rainbow pattern would be a half circle.
Half circle.
But the fact that we have an infinite adjustment on our little circle making guide allows us to infinitely adjust it where the next row of thread will almost touch the last row of thread. So we call it rainbow patterns because you can use all the colors of a rainbow and make a perfect rainbow and use all the colors that
I haven't tried that yet. That sounds fun.
that's one thing that came about because the infinite adjustment. And I won't actually demonstrate it, but I will show you what we do to make the make the half circle. We use the long blade that is 16 inches in diameter, so when it goes from one side to the other, it can make a 32-inch half circle. So, or anywhere less than that, of course. So it is quite versatile, and this tool comes with the machine.
Great.
Well, that's about all that I can think of that we should tell people about. We pretty well covered it, I think, don't you, Linda?
I think so. I think so.
And I hope that it has been informative enough to you to make a comfortable decision on a quilting machine. And if you have questions or if you should want to talk about the delivery of a quilting machine, incidentally, we do offer delivery service, which includes training to most areas in the United States and Canada. And along with the delivery service, of course, is the free training in the home. But anyway, if you have any questions, will you give me or my son Stacy a call at 1-800-659-8224. Thank you for tuning in.
The following segments show some of the quilting techniques that can be done with the Gammill quilting machine.
Hello, I'm Linda Taylor, representing the Gammill Quilting Machine Company, and I am so excited to show you the new features that are on the new Gammill machines. We're working on a classic quilting machine today, and this machine has a new feature called the security stitch. That is located on the left-hand side on the front of the machine. This stitch is a button here that will take one entire stitch at a time. So if I push it, the needle is going to go all the way down and all the way up, so you can bring your bobbin thread up in one touch of the button. It still has the needle positioner feature on it. In other words, if you want to keep your needle in a down position, you can push the button right here on top, and when you sew, your needle will stop down. Or if you want it in the up position, then you have it in the up position to start with, and it will sew, and your needle will stop up. And again, the security stitch will allow you to hold the button down, and as long as you hold the button down, it's going to sew at that very slow, consistent speed. That way you can take your back tack, move the machine away, grab the loop, go down in the same hole by pushing the security stitch one time, and bring your bobbin thread up and cut both your bobbin and your top threads at the same time there. Another wonderful feature on the Gammill machines that is new is the double thread holder, which is located on top of the machine. This has two places for you to put specialty thread, and lots of times we want to use either a rayon thread or a metallic thread or something on one of our smaller spools. You can also, by loosening the top and swinging it around like this, you'll be able to wind a bobbin from this small spool holder if you're going to use a specialty thread. And because there are two places for you to hold those threads, you can use a double thread if you're going to do a lot of thread play and using decorative threads. This is a wonderful feature. If you are going to use this feature, then you do want to just break your thread at this point and tie it on and then bring it through the rest of your machine. You don't want to take your thread back to this other little hole here where your thread guide back here. Another new feature on the Gammill machines is the rotary tension device. This replaces the two discs that we had previously. Those two discs were metal discs, and as the thread went between them, by putting pressure on those discs, you would get a tighter tension. By loosening them, you would get a looser tension. But your thread had to go through quite a process between those two discs and was practically fried by the time it got through the needle. The new rotary tension rides on a track like this, so your thread just rides on the track, but you do take it around twice, and I'm going to just quickly show you how to thread that rotary tension on the new machines. You go on the left side of the thread guide, and you take your thread around 1.5 times and then around through your check spring, like that. So that's a little different. Rather than just going once around that tension, you go 1.5 times. Another new feature on the Gammill machines is an extended throat plate. This plate can be added onto the front of your machine, which gives you a flatter surface to work with as you're on the quilt. Now this is going to allow you to use some other tools, such as your Gam Guide Junior. Let's thread our machine here. Here's our Gam Guide Junior. There are other tools that you can use as well, and other shapes that you can use. But using that nice flat surface underneath the quilt, we can now go down, bring our thread up, there we go, get our bobbin thread to the top, take our 3 little stitches using our security stitch, and then you can place your Gam Guide Junior along the edge of your border or wherever you need to do your stitch in the ditch. And using that as your guide, you can just push your machine along the edge of the ruler. Now, we also have a new foot on the Gammill machines, and this foot has a little higher edge around through the front. Our other foot was a little flatter in the front. So we weren't able to use our tools in the front. Now we can use our tools in the front. So if I wanted to do stitch in the ditch as I was coming across in the front like this, it's very easy to do using our Gam Guide Junior and the new extended throat plate. So that's a feature that I would definitely not want to do without. Took my little security stitches again, and I'll break my thread there. Another exciting feature on the Gammill machines that has saved me a lot of time is the stencil kit. This is an acrylic piece that we put on top of the quilt in the front of the machine, and then there is another acrylic piece that we put our pattern on the back of. This way we don't have to do any taping or pinning of the pattern on the quilt. Our laser light is then moved from the position behind the machine to the front of the machine on this rod here. And by putting the table in a place where we can see it and moving our pattern in a good position for us, if we were going to do a square right here, we would first find the center of that pattern and the center of our square. Our laser light equals the needle. And then we could check, because all of this acrylic is scored, both crosswise and diagonally, we could check and make sure that we were perfectly centered in the square by checking our scored lines with the sides of our square. Then we pick a good place to start on that, and we'll sew this little design. Using the security stitch, I took 3 little stitches there, and I will sew around this, following my laser light right here from the front of the machine. So you can see you could do stitch in the ditch and place all of your designs in squares around on a quilt from the front of the machine without ever having to go around to the back. The other nice feature is when we get close to where we started, we can stop looking at the actual pattern and look down at our stitching. So our stops and our starts are much cleaner. Now I'll go down, bring up my thread, make the loop, and cut both my top and bottom there. I have a very nicely stitched design. Another wonderful feature on the Gammill machines is a dual speed control. Our speed control is still on the front of the machine, but now we can also go around to the back and have a speed control on the back. Let me show you where that is. We're on the back of the machine now, and this is our new speed control in the back of the machine. This is the dial that tells you exactly what speed you're on, which goes from 1 to 100. This is the capacity of the machine, not stitch length or stitches per minute. When we want to switch it to the back, we just push this button here. And when we want to switch it back up to the front, if we're going to be sewing on the front of the machine, then we push it here. This has eliminated us having to go around to the front of the machine to determine what stitch length we want when we're on the back doing pantographs. This is our new pivot access feature, which has absolutely been a lifesaver for me. When we release the roller stops on the lining and the top, we can then pull this pin out that's on the side, and the top roller pivots all the way up, exposing anything that we would see in between the batting and the top. If there was a dark thread under there, we could go and take that off. We could also check to make sure that our batting is perfectly straight and smooth, that there aren't any wrinkles in there. Or sometimes we even need to add a piece of batting for a trapunto effect, or possibly we run out of batting, so we can also add our batting at this time. And you can lift up your batting if you want to check between your lining and your batting to make sure there are no dark threads there. To put that back, we simply roll this top roller down a little bit to give our fabric a little bit of ease, and lower the top roller, put our pivot back, our pin back in, and then tighten up again our lining and our top. Very simple process, but absolutely a lifesaver. The Gammill machines also now have a more powerful motor that is considerably more quiet than the last ones. And we have another feature on the machines that is standard equipment. This is our laser light, and we can have it in the back like this, or we can have it on the front, which we demonstrated earlier with the stencil kit. The laser light allows us to move the light into position where we need to have it in relationship to our quilt. So we don't have to move our quilt into position, we don't have to slide our pattern. And when we're following an intricate pattern like this one, this is called Hummingbird, and when we're following an intricate pattern like this, the laser light allows us to do much more intricate stitching than we were able to do before. The last feature that I want to show you is called the Circle Ease Fantastic. This is a board here that velcros down to the table. You have Velcro strips on your table in 2 different places, and Velcro strips are also applied onto the Circle Ease. This we're going to just put on our table like this, make sure that it's in position so that it won't move. And then we can unscrew our laser light. Let's get it off here like this. In fact, we'll just turn the laser light off, move it out of the way for a minute. We'll take our laser, our pin here that our laser normally sits on, and we can move it over here, and we're going to drop it into whatever hole we determine here for the size of circle that we're doing. The first thing we would do would be to find the center of our circle, and we do that by putting our pin right in the center of this bar that turns around like this in a circle. So then we would find that center of the circle on our quilt. And by the way, that will also adjust if we needed to adjust that up or down to make sure we were exactly in the center. Then we decide what size radius we are going to do, what size radius of the circle. If we wanted to do a 6-inch circle, for example, then I would move this into onto the size 3. That would be the radius for a 6-inch circle. Drop the pin down, tighten it up, and then from the top I'm going to go down, bring up my bobbin thread, take 2 to 3 little stitches. Now that's using my needle positioner here. We'll cut the thread. And I do want to have my back control here so I know what speed I'm on. And then I can just stitch that circle all the way around like this. It's actually pretty foolproof. You can't get out of that position once you're locked into that from behind. And to do another circle, I would just simply have to move that again. If I wanted to do another one, just a little bit larger. This is a 4-inch radius, so this would do an 8-inch circle. And we will move around. So you can see how quickly and how easily you could fill an entire block with circles. The other wonderful feature on the Circle Maker is the fact that you have a little screw right here that you can loosen, and this will go in a complete arc. So you could do circles in an arc, so you can do styrographs. Then you can remove the circle part, and you just do that by loosening the screw here, and you take off your slider, and you can put that slider on to what we call the fan part. So this goes on to the fan, like that. Your Circle Ease will come off, like that. You have a longer screw here that fits underneath here. And this screws on to the bottom here. Now using this, you'd be able to do up to 32-inch circles. You would have to roll the quilt when you did that. Or you could do your fan designs by using your slider and moving up every inch. So that's our Circle Ease Fantastic. All these wonderful new improvements to the Gammill machines have made it such a cinch to use and a real pleasure to use. Thank you so much.
How many of you have ever seen a quilting machine? I was really surprised to see all that you can do with this. I used to think that the only thing was to quilt bedspreads. Well, I was mighty surprised when I met our guest, Linda Taylor. Linda is a quilting specialist and a teacher with the Gammill Quilting Machine Company. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you very much, Donna. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm so excited to show you about the quilting machines and about the project we're going to be working on.
Well, this looks great. This must be a child's quilt that you've designed.
Yes, this is a child's lap quilt, and it has a pantograph pattern in the middle, and we're going to be doing some cross-hatching on it for the second technique.
You did all of this cross-hatching with perfectly straight lines with the machine?
Yes, and I'm going to show you how to do that.
Good. Well, let's see the pattern that you used to create this.
This pattern is back here on the table, and we follow this pattern around with our laser light. But this is not the traditional type of quilting that people normally think of when they think of pantograph patterns. This pattern is more what is the norm.
And that would create a quilt that looks like this.
Yes. This is a pattern that would just go over the quilt, back and forth, regardless of the piecework on the quilt. But there are some quilts that look very lovely this way.
They sure do. And when you have a really intricate design, sometimes that's very nice just to have the stability of a constant pattern running over it.
Yes, it is. And it's an easy thing to do on these machines.
Good. Well, let me move that over here.
Before we get started, let me tell you some things about the quilting machine that you would probably ask, you would want to know. First of all, we do pinning onto these canvas leaders. And of course, we have three components. We have our top and our lining and our batting. So our top goes on this canvas, the front one, and then our lining on this one, and then our batting feeds up in between. And your batting doesn't have to be on a big roll.
I've always seen those large rolls.
That's right.
But I'm glad to know because it can vary the
it
weight
can vary.
that you want in the loft.
They can even be prepackaged.
Good.
You can use your cottons or your high loft polys. You can use a variety of things. It doesn't make any difference.
That's good to know.
Then all three are pinned over here on this side on the pickup roller. So you have a wonderful quilt ready to do in between.
And you hook them here when you have a smaller quilt, but how large can you go?
Well, you can go up to a king-size spread.
Wow.
And down to a very small quilt, and even irregular sizes.
Well, I know in a couple of the segments you're going to be doing later on, you're even doing a vest that can be done on the quilting machine.
Yes, vests, pillows, wall hangings, all kinds of things that you can do.
Good.
Also, some other features on the quilting machine. First of all, is a bobbin winder. This winds while we're sewing, so you don't have to stop and wind a bobbin.
Isn't that handy?
When you run out, it's there. It's also a double bobbin capacity, so you have lots of thread, so you don't run out as often. We have, as we begin working, you'll see that we have this needle positioner, which is a button back here on the back of the machine that I can push to do one stitch at a time.
Right on the handle.
Right on the handle. And as we begin this pantograph pattern, I'm going to start here where it says start.
And this is a continuous design, so you never have to stop.
Design. You don't have to stop at all. I'm going to go down and bring my bobbin thread up like that, and now I'll get a back tack by just doing one stitch at a time, like this, and then trim my thread so that I don't get caught up in the foot. And then I'll start. I'm going to check my speed on this. Okay. I'll start by just following with the laser light. Okay.
Now, how fast do you have to go?
Well, that varies because if you're doing something very small and intricate, then you're going to have to keep your speed down a little bit because you're going to slow down. But then when you're going faster and doing like long lines, you can turn your speed up. When you're doing something like this where you have long lines and intricate little patterns, you just have to try to stay with a constant movement.
How do you know where to go on these?
You just keep following the line as you're coming along. There are some little red lines on this one, on this particular pattern, to show you when you cross over, if you're crossing over in the right place. As soon as I get up to this waist part, Donna, I'm going to stop and let you quilt. Would you like to try it?
Now, where am I going?
You're going to come into this arm, go up and do his whole head and his whole top. Just follow the little red line.
This is a challenge. I've never had to follow these dots, or actually the lines. Now,
Have
I
you done
push
this
this one.
before?
I've never done any quilting on a machine. I tried it once before when we had Gammill on, but I've never really done anything
This is
where I
great.
followed this line. Now, is this, do I push down on this one?
You push with your right hand,
Okay.
and then when you want to stop, you push the button again.
All right.
Okay? Just be real free. This is a free motion machine. So it's not computerized, and your design is going to look different than mine.
Oh, I think it surely will look
That's
different
okay.
than yours.
That's okay. And of course, the more practice you get, the better you get at following the little dot as you're going around and following the panographs.
This is... Now, the viewers may be seeing a little bit darker dot or a wider dot if they're seeing it when we're showing it, because sometimes it diffuses the color out when they have it shown over the television screen there. But I see a tiny little red... Uh-oh, now I've forgotten. Am I right?
Yes, you are. Keep going. There you go.
Oh, boy. You
You're
have
doing
to...
fabulous.
Is it looking good on the outside there?
It's looking great.
Oh, my,
Looking
oh, my.
great. You're
I
hired.
must tell you, this is fun to do. I can see how you could become addicted to doing something
Oh,
like this.
Like all of quilting, it becomes very addictive.
Maybe I should
can do
let
them
you
so
finish
fast.
this, or we'll never get it done in our time allotment. Do I push the right
You can
one?
push your right button then.
There.
I'll
Well,
finish
it's
it
a little
around.
shaky, but
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
you have a much faster speed working with it than I do.
Probably just from experience.
This is interesting. Now, this is really fairly simple to get what ends up to be quite a complicated looking design.
It does look complicated, but you can see how easy it is. Just
Now-
to start and stop.
What kind of thread do you have to use on the machine?
Any kind of thread. I have yet to find a thread that I haven't been able to adjust with making small adjustments on the machine and use. The rayon thread works wonderful, the metallic threads, and we'll be using some of those on later segments.
Good.
So you'll see all the different kinds of things you can do. I'm going to stop there and do a back tack, move the machine away, go down, and in the very same hole, bring up both threads. There's my bobbin and there's my top, and trim them, so I don't even have to go back and trim any threads on the underneath when I'm finished.
Well, let's show them how we do the crosshatch stitching now.
Okay.
That's exciting.
Let's get the GAM guide.
This is something that helps you to guide the line so that you have perfect stitching.
Yes, it's basically just a big ruler that you can use, but it swivels here like this and fits underneath here very nicely. And what you would want to do is, I have placed some tape here. You would measure where you want your cross-hatching, if you want it every 2 inches or 3 inches, and so you would measure that so that you would be able to put this underneath. Get that positioned underneath there. Need to roll this down a little bit to get my back tack. I'm going to go under this little lip here just to get my back tack, so it'll be underneath there.
And this is so nice because you're not going to have any problems with it having straight lines. That's what I find is always so difficult.
And then I can just guide it over here to where I want to be.
And you're quilting just up to?
Just up to the figure.
And then?
And then I come down, have to think about this for a minute and see if I want to go in between there. I think this is where I want to come in between. And then I'm not sure the machine will reach all the way out.
And you just take a couple of lock stitches when you get down there?
That's as far as my machine will reach, so I would roll up and finish that part. But you can see how you could do that. You could just go across and do it all that way, and then you would go the other direction and do your cross-hatching.
Well, let's take a look at some of the quilts that you brought with us to show us some of the techniques that you've used in those.
Okay. The star quilt over there, and that one is one that we have done with trapunto. We put the design on the back of the machine to do the middle part, and we did trapunto, and we'll be showing that in a later segment as well.
Good. And the last one that we have here is just another variation on the quilt that we did today.
Yes, and this time we used just a stippling or a meandering around the figure in the middle, and it kind of raised him up.
And was
almost
this
looks trapunto.
a design, a pre-patterned design on the?
Yes, this is actually part of this pattern.
Oh, it looks great. Well, I want to show also the clothing that you brought.
Oh, yes. Now, these are also the little dress and the little boy's outfit is also done with the pantograph pattern, just following it from behind, and then you cut that into whatever shape you'd want to do. So you can do all kinds of clothing,
They're absolutely
too.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Linda, I'm so excited you're going to be with us for another couple of times, and I want to thank you for joining us on So Creative.
Thank you for having me.
And joining me today on So Creative is Linda Taylor, who is the quilting specialist and a teacher for the Gammill Quilting Machine Company. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Donna. It's good to be here. I'm so excited to tell you some things about the quilting machines today.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, too, and I understand we have a super project to work on.
Oh, this is a really fun project. It's very, very colorful. We've used a lot of colors. It's a little cat quilt, and we have quilted the border using the variegated thread and quilting a little cat in there with some little yarn and footprints. And so I'm very excited to show you how we did that.
That's great. Well, this is what we're going to be quilting on, so let's get started.
Let's get started. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about how this is set up. On the quilting machine, we have 3 rollers. We have the top roller, and that's where we put our top fabric, and we just pin those onto the leaders. These are called canvas leaders. And then we have our lining roller. Our lining goes there. And then we have our batting that goes in between those 2 layers. Now, it's important to remember that you don't have to have a big roll of batting. You can use the prepackaged batting, because every quilt doesn't require the same type of batting. And we use a variety from very thick lofts to very thin cotton lofts. And so you need to be able to remember that. The pickup roller over here is where we pin all 3 layers. And then as the quilt is quilted,
That's the finished
rolls up.
roll there.
Yes,
as it
and then
goes.
so it can end up halfway up here, because this whole bar will raise as you're quilting the quilt. So sometimes you'll get a big roll up there like that.
Now, this is a fairly small piece, but how large can you go on the machine?
Well, this table is a 12-foot table, and it will accommodate a king-size quilt. But as you can see, we can do smaller quilts. And in some of our other segments, we showed how we could do a very small, irregular-size quilt. So you're not limited in any way on the size of the quilt that you can do.
And I know we're doing a vest at one time, so you can do clothing as well on this.
Oh, yes. Very
Well,
versatile.
it's really versatile, and these clamps hold it in position.
These clamps are really the stabilizers for the edges. Call them edge stabilizers.
And how tight do you make it? I mean, is it real taut? Or?
No, I think that most people who have these machines think that, or look at these machines, think that you have to just stretch these quilts on. We don't torture the quilts at all. We just put them on so you have plenty of play in your quilt. Also, there is a bobbin winder that winds on the side of this machine. So when you run out of bobbin, you just switch
So while
bobbins.
you're stitching, it's
While
winding
you were stitching,
itself.
it's winding. Isn't that wonderful?
That's a great feature.
And it has a double bobbin, so we don't run out of thread as often as we do on a regular sewing machine. Let's get started on the project.
All right.
The first thing that we're going to do, and the first thing that we do on any quilt, is kind of stabilize the quilt. And so we're going to be stitching in the ditch. And I don't know if you saw, I went down and I got just one stitch. And you can do that with this needle positioner. It does 1 stitch at a time, like this.
isn't
So you
that
can go
nice?
backwards or forward.
And
pushing
that
it
sort
like
of
that.
locks it as you begin.
That is your lock stitch, yes.
And then you trim the thread right down
You trim
at
the
end?
thread so it won't get caught up in your
Okay.
foot. And then I'm going to use a tool to help me. This foot is designed so that I can use this tool. And I have a speed control here on the front of the machine, so I'm going to turn it down as I'm coming along so that I can stay right in the ditch as I am sewing.
And that guide is running along the lucite guide there?
Yes.
Isn't that something? And this is where you stitch right at the seam stitching, which is called
Right
quilting in the
seam.
ditch.
Yes.
Now,
No.
your needle is down. Can you adjust that up and down?
Yes, you can have, if you want to end with your needle up, then you start with it up. See now if I stop, it'll start
Okay.
up. And also you can change right in the middle while you're sewing. Since
Very
you have
clever.
both hands there, if I want it to stop down now, I would just push it and it will stop down. So I'm going to speed this up just a little bit so we can get this.
And you keep an even movement as you go.
Yes, this is a hand-guided quilting machine. It's not computerized, and so when you move it, you determine the stitch length combined with your speed and how fast or slow you move the machine.
And I see you're using one hand now when you use the guide,
Yes.
so it doesn't matter which.
Your right hand turns the machine on and turns the machine off.
Okay, so
And
once
so
you
you
get
do have
started with the guide, then you need to you don't need to, once you start it, you're fine to use the other one.
Now I went down and I brought my thread up. That's my bobbin thread, this is my top thread, and they won't pull up anymore, and so I can trim that. That trimmed my bobbin and my top at the same time, so I don't have to go back and trim any threads. Now you would want to go ahead and stitch in the ditch on all of this, and then you can use your ruler. We're going to make some little whiskers on these cats.
Okay.
And the nice thing about this pattern is that we can make the whisker on this cat and go right into the whisker on this cat.
Good.
So we'll go all the way across. And I'm going to just kind of come down about 1/4 of an inch from that seam to start the whisker. You could mark this with chalk if you were a little bit leery of just starting in on it like that. But it really will work out. And whiskers on cats are all different anyway.
That's true. No cat's exactly the same.
So we'll just come across like this.
Isn't that easy?
And this will do all the whiskers on all these cats on this row.
You make it look so simple.
Well, I've had a lot of practice, and when people start on these quilting machines, they just have to know that they have to just keep practicing until they are able to do the patterns with ease.
And did you use a lot of just trial and error in the beginning to determine
You know,
how to
actually, when I started with just a plain piece of muslin, and I quilted it with a black thread, and then a red thread, and then a yellow. You can use the same piece and keep practicing until you feel comfortable to do it on a quilt. Now we're going to come across and we're going to make a little tail on the cat and do the feet, and we'll continue just like we did with the whiskers. Okay? So we're going to start about right here, and we're just going to come across and make a little tail, go back into his little foot here, and then we're going to come across and make his little paws, like that, and then we'll start with the next cat.
again.
Over like this.
You look like you've made hundreds of these little things, and I know you haven't.
It could be a big quilt or a
Now
small
I'm
one.
going to give you this because I know this is the next part that we're going to do. Do I turn it
That's
this way?
right, yes.
All right.
We're going to be doing some freehand in this border, but we also want to place this little cat pattern in here. And to do that, we can do it from the front of the machine. I'm going to use my front laser light. There's a laser light attached right here. And so I know this cat takes up just about the entire border, so I'm going to kind of get him set where I want him. Looks like he would fit in there just fine. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to be doing some loops with the machine, maybe some straight lines like this, just plain, really. Just doing some playful things. Maybe go into a little ball of yarn here
Oh, good idea.
and out, just to make it look playful. Like that. Isn't this variegated thread wonderful?
It is. Now you can use any kind of thread, is that
You
correct?
can use any kind of thread on these machines.
Now how do you use the laser?
Okay, I'm to the point now you can see
Right at
where
the
this
foot.
laser is, right
Yes.
there, and I'm going to go into the tail. So I'll watch the laser light, and I'll come over and I'll do the tail.
Now I do want to let our viewers know that they're seeing quite a wide laser light there, but that's because the color kind of spreads out on that lucite. But as I'm seeing it here while you're doing it, it's just a tiny little red dot. Isn't that
Just kind
something?
of follow this around, doing his little face.
Now do you go, there's just,
We're just
you
gonna
know how to
follow
go
that.
the whole way without,
These are continuous line design patterns, and that's basically what we use on these machines. We can take a regular pattern and make it into a continuous line pattern so that we can continually sew. So much easier than starting and
that
stopping.
something? Look at
So
that.
there we have our little cat in the border, and you could continue around. You could even do some little
That's great.
paws.
Well, let's take a look at some of the other quilts you brought with you today so that we can see some of these techniques utilized on some other patterns.
Okay.
The first one, I think, is over there.
Yes, that's the angel quilt, and I just outlined the angels and did some fun loops and some of the things that you've seen me do here in the blocks. And I did loops and stars in the sashing. And then out in the border, I used an angel pattern exactly as we placed it here, with the
Using free motion on that
using
with the
free
laser?
motion with it, with the laser.
Great.
Yes.
And the basket pattern?
The basket pattern was placed on the machine, and then I did the stitch in the ditch and stabilized it. We did a stippling around the baskets, and then we placed the pattern just like again we did here with our laser light in the middle of the basket and on the triangles on the basket to make them look like flowers.
Great. Well, Linda, you've had some wonderful ideas and showing us how easy it is to use the quilting machine, and I thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Today with me is Linda Taylor, who is the sewing specialist and teacher for the Gammill Quilting Machine Company. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you so much, Dawn. I'm excited to be here to show you some of the projects that you can do on the quilting machine. So often people think that you can only do big quilts, and we're going to do some smaller projects today. Just look at this pillow that we have personalized for a wedding, and then the project that we're going to be working on is the table runner here. Just look at the detail that we have that you can accomplish on the quilting machine.
Well, let's go and see how we do that on the machine.
Okay.
Linda, how do you do it when the piece is so much smaller than what you normally think of going on a quilting machine?
Well, that's the beauty of it. You can put your lining on and your batting, just as you normally would. And then, as you can see, this piece would be difficult anyway because it has curves.
Sure.
So it'd be a hard piece to put on. What we're going to do, once we get the lining and batting on, is spray it with a basting spray.
And this will sort of hold it like a tacky?
Yes, it's very tacky, and it will stick this down
Does
wonderfully.
this cause any problems with the needles? Or?
No, there's no problem with the needles, and it completely washes out. It's beautiful
That's
stuff.
great.
You bet. This will stick down nicely. So you can do very small pieces
And
with
that
this.
holds it into position enough for you to do the quilting?
Yes.
Well, now I want to see how you do this.
Okay. First of all, this is a double wedding ring, and it has curves. And so I would need to do that curve. And I have a guide to help me. Call this the arch guide. It's very difficult to do curves and do them exactly the way you want to do them. So we'll just use our machine
And you just
here.
rest up against it.
Just rest up against the foot. The foot is exactly ½ an inch, so I know if I have that along the edge of my fabric, then I'm doing a ¼ inch there. Okay?
Oh, for goodness
There's
sakes,
our
it looks
seam.
beautiful.
Thank you. Now to place the design in the middle, we are going to use the front laser.
And I'll get that piece for you.
We have this acrylic table that we put here, and this helps stabilize all of this for us so that we don't get any vibration. And then we can use our front laser. I've just used masking tape to tape the pattern onto the back of this other piece. It's almost like using a mouse on your computer.
Right.
And I can find the center like that and find the center over here, and of course you could measure and mark that. And this allows you really wonderful placement because you can move your machine and see exactly where you're going to be sewing.
Now let me tell our viewers just one thing. What you're seeing on the camera is actually a tiny little dot as I see it here, but it's diffusing because of the color penetrating out into the acrylic that's there. So it's really a tiny little dot that Linda is following.
And I'm just going to follow the pattern around, as you can see.
This is something...
And it just translates right over here, exactly where I wanted the pattern to go.
Now, I have tried this, and Linda makes it look so easy. It is. I have to go a little slower, but she tells me to get these nice curves and to keep a nice even tension, you have to work at a faster pace. Is that right?
Because the motion of the machine will help keep you going. If you try to go too slow, you tend to be kind of shaky on it, and you don't want to do that. And we know that these are hand-guided machines. These are not computerized machines. So
And the beauty of it is that you are doing it and creating it yourself.
That's right.
And it has that hand look to it.
We're just about over to where we began.
Now, the thread you're using seems to have several different colors in it.
It does. It's a variegated thread. Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, it makes a wonderful design because the exterior almost looks like it's in the orange color, and then the interior sort of appears in the blue-green combinations.
It really went with the colors that were in this fabric.
Very
Now,
nice.
if you wanted to, you could do, like I did over here, I echoed this piece, so you could do that to fill it in some more. And in the smaller pieces, you can either set a design in, or you could just do some freehand, like I did on these other
this
pieces.
freehand. I think that's fun.
I'll turn this up. I tend to go a little faster than the machine. Here we go.
It's amazing.
Isn't that incredible? Look how fast you can get that piece done.
And to think of how much time it would take you to get it into the sewing machine and maneuver it, this makes life so simple because it's all in one easy, continuous piece to work with.
It's fabulous.
Well, I'm really excited about seeing this, and I can't wait, and I've tried it already, and I'm looking forward to doing some more on this. And now let's go back and take a look again at that piece that we did, the table runner, to see how wonderful it looks with all of that exquisite quilting and a little bit of, is that trapunto work we did in there?
Yes, that one had some trapunto in it.
Well, Linda, thank you for bringing this information to our viewers and joining us on So Creative.
Thank you.
My guest today on So Creative is Linda Taylor. Linda is a quilting specialist and teacher with the Gammill Quilting Machine Company. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Donna. Our project today is going to be this vest that I'm wearing. We're going to be talking about quilting whole cloth and then using it to make vests and also cutting other pieces of it up to use for other projects and even putting it and adding it onto ready-mades. Look at the exquisite quilting that you can do on these vests.
Well, let's take a look and see how we do that on the machine.
Okay.
Linda, how are we going to get started making this vest?
Well, the first thing we're going to do is some trapunto on this vest.
Okay.
And I can show you on the back of my vest what it's going to look like.
Oh, this is really nice. It has that raised area to it.
Yes. And so to get that, we put this on the quilting machine with just the batting. We don't use a lining. We put this batting on. And I have chosen Ultra Loft because I like the density that it gives to the trapunto. And then we stitch our design in. Now you do have to plan if you're going to do a vest. These are the two sides, so this would be the front, and this would be the center back. And then you stitch your design in, whatever you've chosen, and I used basting thread that will disappear when you spray it with water. It's dissolvable thread.
Great.
So you put that in, and then you have to, of course, cut away where you don't want that batting to be.
So you've taken and cut all the batting off except those areas, and instead of stuffing, which we normally think of in trapunto, this extra batting creates that puffiness.
That's right, that's right. And then we put the piece back on the machine using our lining.
Okay.
And that's what we have here. We have put this on, and this time I've chosen to use a thin
Cotton
batting with the lining. And now I'm going to stitch around, and by the way, you can see over here, on this side I have already spritzed it with the water, so that has disappeared. This side is still there, and we're going to stitch around the area where it's just basted. Turn on our machine here. We get a good back tack to begin with, and trim our threads. And then we will stitch around this area.
How can you make it go so perfectly?
Well, it does take some practice in learning to control the machine. Then we're going to turn the speed down a little bit, and we're going to do this tiny little stippling.
Oh, so you can just do the outline stitching and then go right into the stippling?
You bet, you bet. And by doing this little stippling around these flowers, it will raise these designs right up.
So it sort of recesses that part of it.
And then you go ahead and do echoing or whatever you want to do to the rest of your vest, whatever kind of freehand that you would like to apply. And using this metallic thread is also a big plus. It really adds a lot to this vest.
Can you use any kind of thread on the machine?
You can use any kind of thread. I haven't found any. In fact, there are many kinds that I can use on this machine that you can't use on regular machines because the needles aren't big enough. So I've been having a ball doing all kinds of, using different kinds of threads. So you can fill in, as you can see, all of these different areas.
And when you do this stippling, is it just a sort of free motion design?
Yes, it's completely free motion. You just make sure that you do curves and don't cross your stitching, and you don't get into a pattern. There's different kinds of meanderings that you can do. But you'll have a lot of fun doing these vests.
This is really neat. And then once you've completed that, you then cut out your pattern design and sew it together. Now, you said you didn't do any side seams. Is this a totally...
Yes, it's completely just like this piece will be. So that...
And you do have to join then just at the shoulders.
Just at your shoulder seam.
Do you plan your design so that it is continuous, or with all of this stitching it really doesn't matter?
It doesn't really matter for the most part, as long as you've got where you're going to trapunto exactly where you want it.
Well, it looks great, and to me, the thing that I like is that this moves with such ease. I tried it a little bit before, and I was amazed at how light it is and easy to control. And, you know, to me, this makes life a lot easier when you're doing quilting and making particularly a vest like this.
It's incredible. There's unlimited possibilities with this machine.
Well, Linda, I want to thank you for coming and showing us all of this and sharing your ideas on the quilting machine.
You're very welcome.
I have learned so much over the last few weeks about using a quilting machine. I used to think it was only for making bedspreads, but our guest, Linda Taylor, has shown me how much you can do. Linda is the quilting specialist and a teacher for the Gammill Quilting Machine Company. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Donna. It's so good to be here, and I have a lot of ideas to share with you today.
That's great. I know you brought a great project, so let's take a look at it.
I did. This quilt is an autumn spirit, and we're going to be doing some freehand quilting on it, as well as some applique with 3D leaves and some couching.
Well, the colors are so vibrant, and it really gets you into an autumn feeling for sure.
It does. Let's start with some of our freehand, and I just kind of let this fall fabric dictate to me what to do. And so we just sort of go in kind of swirls like this.
And you could, if you wanted, if you had a design, do outline quilting freehand as well.
Absolutely. You bet.
Oh, and you go right into the main quilted
just go
part.
right into the main quilted
piecing.
part. Would you like to try this, Donna?
Sure.
Just take
Now, and do I
over.
have to have a design here?
No, just do whatever comes into your mind.
Oh my, I don't think I'm as good as you are here, but it is so easy to do.
On a nice free form like this, you can't make a mistake. Isn't that fun?
Oh, it is. I would think you can really get excited about doing designs and coming up with ideas, and this is fun. Should I stop or keep going?
Well, let's have you come kind of over back here into the border, and we're going to show you how to do applique a leaf on here. Wonderful.
This is fun. Now what do I do?
Just push this button on the right, and it stops. Okay. We have some leaves back here.
This is the first time I'm doing this, so this is, she just caught me off guard there.
We have some applique leaves. We just sewed them, turned them, slit them like this, so they'll be 3D. And we're just going to kind of place these over here in the border like that, and then we can just kind of sew over here. And I'm going to use my needle positioner, get up on top of the applique like that, and then I'll just come like over here like this, make a stem. And this variegated thread just comes out in different colors, just sort of making some veins here in the leaf. And again, just kind of doing this freehand and having a lot of fun doing it. This way the leaf will kind of stick up there. Now you
and it gives you that three-dimensional look,
Oh, it does.
too.
It's great. But you can also do regular applique if you want to actually fuse something on here and then do that. So we can have you, why don't you just applique your leaf right here on there.
All right. Now I push this.
This one is the one that you'll push
Bring my
to
needle up.
bring your needle up.
Okay.
And kind of stick that underneath.
Now, as I've, that thread coming across like that, does that make any difference?
That's probably, you won't want to probably do that. So
Okay.
let's go down and make sure that you are going to be in a place where you want to start. Let's just go ahead and put the leaf right here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Okay.
you may run out of room here if we come
Okay.
too close to the border. So let's
And I
have you
start
do it.
here.
You just start and stop with that right button. Wonderful. There's your vein. Oh, you're a natural. This is great.
Fun. I think you could become very addicted to doing this kind of thing. Did
It
it
is.
take a long time to really become as proficient? Oh, mine doesn't look as good as yours.
Oh, I think it's great. I think it's
But I guess in quilting you can't make any mistakes.
you can't
so.
on something like this that's freehand. I also want to show you another technique. It's called couching.
And these are the beautiful yarns
Oh,
that you
yes,
brought in.
yes. And they can just go anywhere. Let's just say we want to start right here out of this leaf. Let's clip some of these threads. And we'll start right here on this leaf. Get on top of it first. And then you're just almost like in a zigzag over this trim.
So you kind of pull it out in front of you and then curve it
Just
around.
make sure you keep your fingers away from the needle if it's going to turn. And you just kind of move it over and go wherever you want. Now you could, you know, draw a line on there or
And follow the design
follow
if you
the
want
design
it.
if you wanted to. Yeah.
Oh,
So
isn't
that's
that
how we do
clever?
couching. And you can do it with a lot of different fun types of things like we've done on the
Is
sample.
that the one you used on the sample?
Yes. These are the ones that I use in the sample, which brought out some of the purples and some of the other colors out of the quilt.
Well, it adds so much dimension and texture to it, particularly with this fall spirit. It's really nice.
It really does. I'd really like to show you one other feature that we have just added to the machine. It's called circle ease, but I need to go to the other side of the machine.
Okay,
to
why
do
don't
it.
you go around there?
This circle ease will make any size circle from 2-inch circle out to 18-inch circle just by pulling the machine back here and taking this little peg, slipping it down through here, and then deciding what size circle you want. Let's say we wanted a 8-inch circle. We would just stick it right in there. So let's make a circle up here now.
And I would think circles are one of the hardest to make.
Oh, a perfect circle, absolutely. It would be very, very hard to do that freehand. Now we've got our back tack there, and we'll trim our thread. And you can watch. I'm going to do this with one hand. If I just push it right here and just push this around. Look at that. It makes an absolute perfect
that
circle.
something? And what are the sizes we can do from what to
From
what?
a 2-inch out to an 18-inch diameter.
Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that amazing? So you can do a lot of fun things with that.
Now, can you do another circle
Let's
inside?
do another
so smaller
one. Yes. Let's
We'll
come
see
in
how
here
that
and
goes.
do right here. Okay.
Isn't
So see,
that
over
clever?
a block, you could just do circles.
And you know, this
doing
is
them.
such a nice design to use as a quilting pattern because so much of piecing is angular movement.
Oh, yes.
And when you add the circles, it creates a whole different feeling.
It really does.
Well, let's take a look at some of the quilts you brought with you today.
Called the Colorado Log Cabin. And in the white area, I did a freehand feather. And in the green area, I did a freehand ribbon.
I love log cabins, and I love it with that star at all of the intersections there.
Oh.
It's really attractive.
Thank you. This next quilt is a quilt that's made with an angular ruler, and it's all quilted with freehand, different kinds of techniques, just using straight lines and angular designs and curves, just like we have done. And then the last quilt is the spinning stars, and you can see in the stars I've done a pinwheel, and then I've done the border just a freehand and echoed it.
Well, as always, you have had some beautiful quilts, some wonderful ideas, and certainly some new techniques to utilize with the quilting machine. Linda, I want to thank you very much for joining us on So Creative.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Over the last 12 weeks, we've been doing the creative block for our Fabric Garden sampler quilt. And now it's time to do the finishing. We've added the sashing, we've added our borders, and it's time to do the quilting. Now, traditionally, we've done the quilting by a machine or by hand, but we're going to do it special this time. We're going to do it with a quilting machine. And joining me is our expert, Linda Taylor, who is representing Gammill Quilting Machine Company. She is one of their quilting specialists and also a teacher. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Donna. This quilt was fabulous to quilt because it has so many different blocks. And so I did each one uniquely. We have a border where we would want to place a border design, and the sashing, which we can do freehand, and then we'll do each one of these blocks differently. To begin with, we'll start with some metallic thread.
And we've used the metallic in the decorative and the
Yes,
sashing, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And we can also use the variegated out in the border.
All right.
That worked very well out there.
Good.
So we're going to just do some freehand here. I like to come in here with just like a little question mark and then just start doing some patterned meandering like this and continue this out all the way around.
And you kind of create the design according to the look of the pattern
That's
itself.
right, that's right. And then we can follow this line and kind of stabilize this square to get over to your next area.
Oh, that's a good idea. And you're quilting in the ditch at this point.
Yes. And now we'll come down and do a decorative design on this side.
Now, is this similar to the one you did on the other?
Yes, yes. It's just kind of the reverse of it.
But how did you remember what you did on the other side?
It was just easy. I was thinking of a question mark.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then you can just continue to fill in all the way around.
Now, I know that you then use some metallic into the center. And how do you...
Yes.
Do you have to stop and start each time?
Yes, you do. You don't want to drag your thread because then you would maybe catch it up underneath the machine. So you want to stop and start. The fun part is doing this center because you can start right in the middle like this.
Okay.
And you use your body with this machine when you're doing this. Kind of do a little...
So you just kind of let your whole body
just kind of
rotate.
let your whole body rotate with this, and it keeps it really in a more circular design.
It's like a little snail's design.
Uh-huh. That's how
Very
you do
good.
center.
And then in the sashing, what kind of a stitch did you
In
use
the
there?
sashing, again, was a freehand. But
it looks so easy. You can start and stop.
Oh,
and
you can, anywhere you want to. You just make sure that you get a back tack when you
Uh-huh.
start and stop. And you could put some tape along the edge of your sashing here and make little marks if you wanted to.
So
I'm
you
just
have
doing
the
little
exact
loops.
measurement on that.
Mm-hmm. As you get better at it, you just have a feel for it. So that's what I did in the sashing. It was real easy and fun to do.
Would you do that all the way across the top strip first and then start down the sides? Or,
Yes.
And if you were doing a strip like this, you'd get it down to here, stop, and then roll it up a little more?
Yes,
so that,
you can roll the entire quilt. When you finish this part, you roll the entire quilt up. Start
and
on
then
the
you
next
do the
block.
next part of it. Well, it makes it look so easy. What would you say would be the time to do this whole quilt that we've done?
That quilt on my machine took me about 8 hours.
That's incredible. Well, let's go. Thank you, first of all, Linda, for joining us and showing us how easy it is to do it on the quilting
Oh,
machine.
you're very welcome.
And let's go back and take a look at the quilt and see all of the different stitches that we used on it.